Just like that, we have just 2 weekends left of the NFL regular season. Let's finish out strong. Welcome into Fantasy Football Today DFS on Thursday, December 30th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined as always by Mike McClure and Nejad. Today on the podcast, we're going to deep dive each game on the Week 17 main slate. And it's a big one, 14-game main slate. I was complaining to these guys before, and I've been building this rundown for like 4.5 hours. There's just so many games, so many injuries, so many things to look up, but we will get to all of it. We'll have my dad's sneaky DFS picks, and of course, we will wrap up with our cheat sheet, which includes our favorite value, chalk, contrarian, and stack of the week. Before we get into all of it, I want to wish everybody a happy and healthy new year, and just a thank you to everyone who's listened, who's watched, who's supported us all season long. We really do appreciate you. And of course, if you want to play against us, you can find the link to our contest in the podcast and YouTube description. Mike, how you doing? How are you going to be celebrating your new year?
I'm doing well, sweating some college football on the other screen. The last minute of this first half is taking seemingly a half hour, as it always does. But I will be celebrating in New York City. I'll be flying to New York tomorrow morning with my girlfriend. It'll be a great time. I don't know what we're actually doing tomorrow night. Staying at one of my favorite places in the world, the Palace, and we'll go from there, see what happens. But it's going to be a good day.
Every time I hear the Palace, I think of Malice at the Palace. It's just like the first place that my mind goes. And I'm sure many people think the same exact thing. Mike, you know the deal. Just stay away. Stay away from Times Square. Don't do it. I've heard the horror stories. People wearing adult diapers. They can't go to the bathroom. They're just, it's just absolutely disgusting. Stay away. Just stay away from that part of New York. See what's going on with you. How you celebrating the New Year?
Yeah, I did Times Square 20 years ago or so, and I was fortunate. Somebody had an apartment like near Times Square, so there wasn't much of a trek for us. But by the time we got down there were people for 10 blocks deep, and it was pretty much a disaster. So I totally agree with that sentiment, Frank. Not for me, especially in the cold weather. But yeah, I'm excited about the new year. I'm excited about football. I'm not really doing anything for the new year. I kind of told you maybe a couple episodes ago. I can be a buzzkill around the actual holiday day. And so I generally, and I have kids too. So it's hard to get out and get a babysitter and all that boring stuff. So I'll just be watching football, which is honestly like a 10 out of 10 for me. Give me that all day.
That's perfectly fine. It sounds like, you've lived it up. You've done it. You were there in New York. So look, I've lived in New York my whole life. I've never gone to see the ball drop, and I am never going to do so. It's perfectly fine just watching it on television. Anyway, Week 17, that's the reason why you're here. It's a 14-game main slate. No Thursday night football. We're recording this on Thursday. It feels weird that there's no football on Thursday, but it is what it is. There are no Saturday games as well. So that's why we have all those games on Sunday. We have 2 games as of now with a total over 50 points. That includes the Cardinals at Cowboys and the Chiefs at the Bengals. Both of those games are currently at 51 points. And then we have 4 double-digit spreads. That includes the Bills laying 14.5 points against the Falcons. The Pats are -16 hosting the Jaguars. The Bucks are 13-point favorites at the Jets, and the 49ers are 12.5-point favorites against the Houston Texans. COVID, still going to have some situations here up in the air, but the NFL changed their COVID protocols the other day. So we are going to get players back sooner rather than later. They decreased the period where you need to stay away from the team from 10 days to 5 days. So some players who were placed either this past weekend or early in the week, they will have a chance to return by Sunday. Let's jump right into our first game here, and that is the Chiefs at the Bengals. The Chiefs are 5-point favorites with a 51-point total here. No surprise, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire missed Thursday's practice, and it looks like he's trending towards being out in this game. Travis Kelce has been activated off of the COVID list. For the Bengals, linebacker Logan Wilson and cornerback Jalen Davis are questionable in this game. Lots of different directions that you could go here in this spot. We have Patrick Mahomes, who's 7,800 on DraftKings, coming off back-to-back 3 touchdown games. And of course, Joe Burrow, who is 6,900, coming off a career performance, 525 yards, 4 touchdowns. Mike, we'll start with you. What is your favorite way to stack this game, Chiefs and Bengals?
Yeah, it's going to be on the Kansas City side once again, just because I think that the pricing, it's close enough on Mahomes and Burrow that I'm going to go to the Patrick Mahomes side. It's a really good test for Joe Burrow, frankly, as good as this Kansas City defense has been of late. Very interested to see, but I'm going to be off of Burrow personally. I'll be on the Kansas City side using some of Burrow's weapons as bringbacks and just overall game stacks in general. But I do like Patrick Mahomes. I'll pay the elevated price tag. I like his handcuffs. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, both healthy. Game that they really, really, really want to win. They want to lock up that top seed. They want to have home field advantage. They want to have the bye. All of those things, incredibly important game for them. And I think it's going to be good, a competitive game. So I like Mahomes' side of it. I like Tyreek Hill. I like Travis Kelce. I like Pringle. And then I like Darrell Williams also as kind of an extension there, just assuming that he's going to be the lead back in this one.
All right. Yeah. Look, I think there are multiple different ways that you can go here. And it sounds like, Mike, we know that you play 5 lineups per week. See, you probably play like between 5 and 10, I would say, right? Tournament lineups each week.
Tournament lineups, more like 10 to 12, I would say. And then I have like 3 to 4 cash lineups.
Okay. So yeah, there's multiple ways that you could go about stacking this game. And I think it's feasible to stack both sides. If you wanted to go Joe Burrow and both of his wide receivers with a Kelce bring back, a Tyreek Hill bring back. If you wanted to go, I think it's viable to go with Kelce and CJ Uzomah in the same game. I mean, we talked about Uzomah the other day. He's only 3,300 and he has a 17% target share over the past month. So yeah, I think that's definitely doable. See, which side are you looking at here? Or if you're looking at both sides, what is your favorite way to stack?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at both sides. And I think I'm going to have a lineup that's going to have the same stack I did last week, which of course was Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and just hope that hits again. And I certainly think it's a viable stack, not just as viable as last week, but pretty close. So I like that side of it. I probably agree with Mike that I like the Patrick Mahomes side a little bit more, but I do like the savings you get on the Cincinnati side. So I think that, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but at the same time, you are getting the savings on the Cincinnati side. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill makes a lot of sense. I will say that Darrell Williams is going to be a fixture in a lot of my lineups, whether I'm stacking this game or not. And I probably will have one of my tournament lineups that has Darrell Williams in a stack with Patrick Mahomes, because we know, that CEH, I mean, I don't know. We broke this news on Tuesday, right? We were the medical team. We said CEH is not playing this weekend, and we stand firmly by that. I just don't think that's going to happen. So I think Darrell Williams, he's going to get at least half of the carries, and he's going to get the passing down work. And even when CEH was playing, he was getting a lot of work too. So I think they're going to lean on him quite a bit in this game. So Williams is definitely a fixture. I think if you decide you don't want to stack this game, you definitely want to do maybe what's called like a skinny stack, maybe get some pieces from each side. And if it was me and I was choosing one guy from each side, for example, it might be Darrell Williams just because of the savings I get off of, like, let's say a Tyreek Hill. And then on the other side, maybe a T. Higgins, unless you wanted to go kind of contrary and grab Joe Mixon. But I think the price difference between Chase and Higgins is really interesting. I think Chase has a higher ceiling, but it's really at this point, can you really say that? And we know that Higgins is getting the volume even more so than Chase. So I like the discount you're getting there. So I might have some lineups that stack something else and grab Darrell Williams, grab T. Higgins. Maybe they also grab Byron Pringle. But I'm not, my point is get a piece of this game, whether you're stacking it or not.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. Even if it's not your main stack, say you want to go with the Cowboys and Cardinals, you want to game stack that one up. If you want a mini stack of Darrell Williams and T. Higgins, I think that correlation makes a ton of sense there. Obviously, the Chiefs are expected to be playing with the lead here, and we've seen what T. Higgins can do recently, his upside, and obviously he's cheaper. He's $700 cheaper than Jamar Chase over on DraftKings. For me, if I'm spending up for one person on the Chiefs side, I really do like Travis Kelce in this spot. The Bengals have struggled recently against tight ends. They've allowed a touchdown to a tight end in 6 of their last 8 games, and they've gotten absolutely destroyed by both George Kittle and Mark Andrews. Obviously, we know that Travis Kelce is in a similar mold as those tight ends. Mike, anything else in this game in terms of just cash games? I know you've mentioned Darrell Williams. Are you using him in cash? Are you looking to use CJ Uzomah in cash as well?
Yeah, I'll probably have both in cash. Definitely double tight end weekend for me again, but I'm guessing at this point, again, COVID news can change everything, especially with value running backs. But as of right now, Williams will be in 5 of 5, 100% of my lineups. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Rams at the Ravens. The Rams are 3.5 point favorites with a 46.5 point total here. Darrell Henderson was placed on the IR. Safety Taylor Rapp and nose tackle Greg Gaines did not practice for the Rams. Center Brian Allen was limited. And then for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson was limited at Wednesday's practice and apparently was not moving well. And it comes out on Thursday that he did not practice at all. So it looks like trending towards another week that Lamar Jackson is going to be out. Tyler Huntley was activated from the COVID list, and he is just $5,600. So I think that could be a popular play there as well, rightfully so. The last time we saw him, he looked pretty damn good for the Baltimore Ravens. A couple other Ravens items here: cornerback Anthony Averett, Ben Powers, wide receiver Marquise Brown, Alejandro Villanueva, all did not practice on Thursday. The Ravens are still really, really beat up here in this spot. Tough spot going up against the Los Angeles Rams, even though they're at home. Before we get into the stacks, I want to start with Sony Michel real quick. He's 5,800 over on DraftKings, 7,100 on FanDuel. Sia, how do you feel about Sony Michel? Are we eating the chalk when it comes to him? Currently projecting for, I believe, one of the top 3 running backs in terms of ownership on late.
Definitely eating the chalk in cash. I think that's kind of an obvious statement given, what he is going to, the work he's going to get, knowing that Darrell Henderson is out and Cam Akers probably not suiting up. And if he does, he'll be super low impact. So yeah, I'm going to play him in tournaments a little bit too. I just love the situation here. I mean, I think in tournaments, obviously if I'm not stacking, Stafford and Kupp, or a double stack with Stafford and Kupp, and let's say Odell Beckham, I would probably rate those 3 receivers in that order: Kupp, Beckham, then Van Jefferson. But my point is, if I want to grab a piece of that game, kind of like the Darrell Williams thing, I just grab Sony Michel out of it and call it a day and go to the stack that I really want to go with. So I really, really like Sony Michel. I mean, keep in mind, not only is he going to get the bulk of the work, but he ran routes on 76% of Stafford dropbacks in week 16. I don't expect that to change. If anything, it'll go up a little bit. And that's 73% over the last 4 weeks. So he is the pass catching back. So first, second, third down. And he's shown some burst. Like when he was with New England at the beginning of the season, we're kind of like, oh, same old Sony Michel. But no, this is the guy that, was at Georgia kind of dominating. So I like him a lot.
Yeah. And look, it's worth mentioning Cam Akers is practicing. It sounds like maybe he'll be active in this game, but he's only 5-6 months removed from a torn Achilles. Even if he plays in this game, maybe he gets 10 to 15% of the snaps, 3 to 5 touches. I don't think that he's going to have a big role in this game. Regardless, Sony Michel has 20 plus touches in 4 straight games, 19 red zone opportunities since week 13. That is 3rd most in the NFL during that span. Let's get into our favorite stack combinations in this game, and we're loaded up top. Cooper Kupp, 9,500. Mark Andrews, 7,400. The highest priced players at their respective positions. Fade them at your own risk. Mike, what do you think when it comes to Cooper Kupp, Mark Andrews, and potentially stacking this game?
I mean, it's hard not to like both of them, especially Cooper Kupp. He just has such a high floor. I know Mark Andrews has been performing well. I've been on him pretty much every week that he's performed well, which has been very nice. However, I think this will be the time that I end up jumping off of the Mark Andrews train. I think that it'll be more of a Hollywood Brown type game in this one, personally. So on my bringbacks, I'll be looking to Marquise Brown. I'm going to basically swap right over to Travis Kelce from Mark Andrews at this point. I think this is a great matchup for Travis Kelce. I think that we'll finally see more of that, people jumping on Mark Andrews a little bit, just because of the natural bring back ability of Cooper Kupp and Sony Michel, who we both project to be popular, especially Sony Michel. So I like Marquise Brown. Depending on what happens at quarterback, if Huntley somehow doesn't go and it's Johnson again, then I would definitely look to Rashad Bateman, who those two seem to have a ton of chemistry together. But as of right now, it's Marquise Brown for me on the Ravens side. A lot of Sony Michel. It'll be Sony Michel, Darrell Williams combinations at running back and cash games. Probably not going to end up with any Mark Andrews, though, at this point.
All right, Marquise Brown, Mike, didn't practice on Thursday. I'm not seeing a reason for it. There is one thing here that says undisclosed, so I guess we'll see what happens on Friday. You mentioned Rashad Bateman. Let's just say, for some reason, Marquise Brown is out in this game, but Tyler Huntley is starting. Would you still like Rashad Bateman in the spot? He's only 4,800.
I think it's okay, but if Brown is out, just knowing that he's going to draw all of the attention then at that point, I think I would probably pass at 4,800, just because I think the ownership would tick up just enough that I would feel just as good about saving a little money and playing someone like Byron Pringle, who I still think could get left out on this slate. So that's where I would be on it. I only want Bateman if Brown is in.
Okay. Sia, you are up. How are you looking to stack this game, if at all? Matthew Stafford is 7,100. And again, this Ravens secondary, their defense is absolutely beat up. So are you looking to potentially stack Stafford with Cooper Kupp, maybe another pass catcher, maybe do it with Sony Michel as well, and just kind of run a full-on Rams onslaught here?
Yeah. And so this is why, when I say I run like 10 to 12 tournament lineups, let's say 3 of those 10 lineups that I do might be like a slight variation of what you were just talking about, where I have Matthew Stafford with Sony Michel and Cooper Kupp. And then I have one with Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Odell Beckham. And then maybe a crazy one that actually eliminates Cooper Kupp and just runs Stafford with Odell Beckham and Van Jefferson. And you just hope for a ho-hum game from Kupp and that the touchdown equity goes to the second and third wide receiver there. I think an interesting option, though, if Huntley is playing, which is what I expect, and he's 5,600 on DraftKings, I think, you pair him with Mark Andrews, and then you bring it back with two options on the Rams. Let's say Sony Michel and one of the receivers. I think that could get interesting just because you're saving so much money with Huntley that you could potentially, with the other value on the board, you get Andrews, you get Cooper Kupp, you get Sony Michel, who presents good value, and maybe you could still make your lineup work. Just something to consider.
All right, so I'm punching some stuff in now. Let's see how this works out. I don't know who's a cheap defense that we like this week. I haven't even looked at defense, to be honest.
Washington is 2,500, I believe. Yeah, at home against the Eagles, who apparently everybody thinks the Eagles are world beaters now, and Washington's the worst team in the NFL because of what they saw on national television. But the defense is still in play, in my opinion.
All right, so if you run Tyler Huntley to Mark Andrews with Cooper Kupp and Sony Michel on the bring back, CJ Uzama at your flex, so you got dual tight end, Washington football team defense 2,500, and Darrell Williams as your RB2 at 5,800, you have $5,050 remaining for your other two wide receiver spots. So if you find a cheap wide receiver you like, a Zay Jones or a Byron Pringle, then you could probably get someone around the 6K range, something like that. It's not bad. Yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting build this upcoming week. Let's move on to the Bucks at the Jets. The Bucks are 13-point favorites with a 45.5-point total. Mike Evans returned to practice on Thursday. Shaq Barrett, Richard Sherman, Antoine Winfield, Jason Pierre-Paul, and Antonio Brown did not practice on Thursday. Antonio Brown apparently dealing with an ankle injury. Their head coach, Bruce Arians, is on the COVID list. And then on the Jets side of things, Jamison Crowder did not practice Thursday. Elijah Moore is eligible to return this week, and head coach Robert Saleh gave him about a 50-50 chance to play. He's dealing with a quad injury, so we'll see what happens on Friday. I think that'll be a big day in determining the status of Elijah Moore. The Bucs wide receivers basically up in the air right now. We have Mike Evans, who is 7K, Antonio Brown, 6,100. We'll see what happens if Antonio Brown can practice. But Mike, we'll start with you. How do you feel about the Bucs in this spot? I guess really just their entire offense. You know, Tom Brady, he's 3 touchdowns away from 40. He has some familiarity playing in MetLife when he was there in the AFC East. He's 7,600. We still have Ronald Jones with Leonard Fournette on the IR. And now this wide receiver situation is a little bit murky. So how are you handling the Bucs offense situation?
Yeah, I love the Bucs offense. Antonio Brown, 100% of lineups. Again, he's just $2,000 too cheap. It's literally a free square as long as he's active. So I will be playing him in 100% of lineups, assuming that he is active and everything looks good. I will also have Tom Brady double stacked with Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski. I think you can pretty comfortably account for most of the targets going in those directions. I do think he will have his 3 touchdowns in the game, being Tom Brady. Get to 40 there. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a great spot, an opportunity for him to do so. So that's where I'm going to be. I'm not going to go to Ronald Jones. I think he's an okay tournament pivot if you want to get away from Williams and Sony Michel, maybe Devin Singletary, who looks like he could be a little popular. But for me, it'll be Antonio Brown everywhere, and then one lineup of Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, and Rob Gronkowski.
All right. See, how are you looking to handle this Bucs offense? Because it sounds like Mike is fading Mike Evans, even if he's in the game here. So how do you feel about Mike Evans if he plays? And Ronald Jones at his price tag, 6,300. How does he compare against other running backs that are in that price range?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I'm not really comfortable playing Mike Evans. I mean, you know, when you're reading the sort of the injury status of Evans, you know, we know he was pulled off the COVID-19 list or activated from it, but he still suffered that hamstring injury in week 15. And I'm actually surprised he practiced today. So again, like I don't really know what the status of the hamstring is, but I don't have a ton of confidence unless I hear he's flying around in practice and I happen to see video of that, or it's just common knowledge that he's a full go. Then I would absolutely consider him, and it would make my confidence in Tom Brady stacks a little bit higher. But Tom Brady to Mike Evans and Antonio Brown, for example, like that could be against the Jets. That could be pretty amazing. So for now, I'm off of him. I agree about Antonio Brown. We'll obviously have to vet, you know, why he missed practice today. But as of now, he seems like such a smash play at 6,100, just like he was last week. I do like Ronald Jones this week, especially against the Jets. His performance was a little weak last week, but honestly, this game it's the type of game where Ronald Jones really could see a lot of carries. I know Keyshawn Vaughn is getting worked in a little bit, but I do like Ronald Jones at 6,300, and I do like Antonio Brown. Other than that, I don't think I'm going to be getting to Gronkowski. I will say this, as a flyer, knowing that Antonio Brown really got all the targets. I mean, he got 50% of the targets last week, and really nobody else did. I think Cyril Grayson was the guy who was the next best in targets, and he had 3. Gronk only had 2. I guess maybe Cameron Brate had a handful of targets as well. My point is, part of the reason that Grayson was the second in targets is because Brashad Perryman wasn't active. I believe he was on the COVID list. So I actually think what's going to happen if Mike Evans doesn't play is you're going to see Antonio Brown and Brashad Perryman in 2 wide receiver sets. And against the Jets, that could really pop. So Brashad Perryman as a flyer, as somebody as a cost saver that could pop with a high ceiling, somebody to consider, keep an eye on.
Brashad Perryman, 4,300 over on DraftKings in a revenge game against the New York Jets. Speaking of those Jets, Sia, is there anyone here that you like? Michael Carter, Elijah Moore, if he manages to return, Braxton Berrios, if Moore is out, if Crowder is out, he's only 3,700.
It's a 14-game slate. I'm not fishing for Jets, so the answer is no.
All right, let's move on to the Eagles at the Washington football team. The Eagles are 3-point favorites with a 45-point total. Miles Sanders has been ruled out with that broken hand. Jordan Howard did not practice Wednesday, but was back at practice on Thursday. For the Washington football team, Antonio Gibson did not practice, dealing with a hip injury now. So it's always something. It's a hip, it's a foot, it's a toe. There's a lot going on for Antonio Gibson. Cornerback William Jackson, defensive end Montez Sweat, dealing with a personal issue, did not practice on Thursday as well. Mike, with Miles Sanders out, what is your interest level in either Jordan Howard, 5,200, or Boston Scott, 4,900?
I don't have much interest in either. I think that they're fine in deeper tournaments, but I'm very much set where I'm at running back, which is going to be Darrell Williams. So I don't think I'm going to have anyone in this game. If I do, it would be Antonio Gibson at his price point, but I am completely off of the Philadelphia Eagles personally. Just so many ways that they can score, so many ways that they can do things. I'm not playing Jalen Hurts on this kind of slate. So if you like them, I think that they're fine. If you have a good read on which back is going to land in the end zone, I think that's great. You should obviously play them, but I'm not going to play that roulette game personally, just because I think that there are a lot of options there for them still, even with Sanders out. So for me, I'm going to stick to where I'm at running back. I don't think I'm going to end up with anyone in this game.
All right. See, how do you feel about this game in terms of the Eagles passing attack? Jalen Hurts is 6,600. Last time he faced Washington, he ran in for 2 touchdowns. He had something like 29 DK points. Devontae Smith is coming off of a big game. He's 6,300. Dallas Goedert is 5,100 in that mid-tier, and he did go over 100 yards last time he faced Washington. How do you feel about the Eagles and anything on the Washington football team side?
No, this is another game I'm very comfortable just completely sidestepping. I mean, I think you can make an argument for Boston Scott at 4,900, depending on how the injury situation shakes out with Jordan Howard specifically. Obviously, Miles Sanders is out. 4,900, I mean, that's certainly value. I mean, they're going to be going to him quite a bit. So I kind of like him if you need the cash, so to speak. Other than that, I mean, let's keep in mind this game's at Washington. And even though the Washington secondary is pretty terrible, the front seven is still pretty good. So I don't really see Jalen Hurts having the type of success that Dak had, because frankly, he's not that type of quarterback. I think that's kind of, in fact, I'm not even sure I know the difference between Jalen Hurts and Taysom Hill. Now that I think about it, I mean, let me ask you guys, is Jalen Hurts a better quarterback than Taysom Hill? And if so, is it marginal? Am I crazy for even asking the question?
I don't think you're crazy, but I do think Jalen Hurts is a better pure passer. Just my opinion. And it's more so about Taysom Hill being as bad as he is, more so than Jalen Hurts actually being that good. I don't know if you have a different answer, Mike.
I mean, I'm very low on Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's a quarterback in the NFL. I just don't. But it's just, we can talk about that for a long time, and I know we'll have lots of comments, lots of hot takes to be thrown around. But not a Jalen Hurts fan. I don't think he's very good at all.
Right. And that's all I have to say about this game too. So we can definitely move on. All
right, we got the Raiders at the Colts. Whoa, what just happened, Mike?
Liquid death.
You got me fired up. I got to cool off a little bit.
There's only one way to cool off, and that's with an ice cold liquid death. I was talking to these guys beforehand, and my fiance works in the city, and I told her, hey, check out a Trader Joe's, see if you can find me a liquid death. You know, I'm tired of being left out. I've got some serious FOMO here. I want to drink some liquid death on the podcast. And Nothing. They didn't have it. I guess it was all sold out. I don't know. But I tried, guys. Let's move on to the next game. We have the Raiders at the Colts. The Colts are 6.5-point favorites with a 44.5-point total. A must-win game. You're going to hear that, I think, for a lot of teams this time of year. But it truly is a must-win game for both teams in terms of playoffs, trying to get in or trying to stay in their current positioning. For the Raiders, 11 players are currently on the COVID list, including Darren Waller, who was added on Wednesday. He still has a chance to play, but he needed those practice reps because he's dealing with this knee injury. So I think it's a pretty long shot at this point for Darren Waller to suit up in week 17. For the Colts, they have 6 players on the COVID list, including Carson Wentz. He does have a chance to return Sunday as well, given this new 5-day quarantine rule. Jack Doyle, offensive lineman Eric Fisher, and safety Andrew Sendejo did not practice here on, I believe it was Wednesday. Didn't see their Thursday practice report yet. Are we looking to play Jonathan Taylor? Not even going to ask Mike because I know he's not playing Jonathan Taylor. CEO, how do you feel about him? He's 9K on DraftKings. He's 10K on FanDuel, the highest price running back on both sites.
Yeah, I might be back in on Jonathan Taylor. On Tuesday, I was a little lukewarm, and honestly, like it obviously depends. I mean, if I'm trying to get like Cooper Kupp and somebody in Mark Andrews, there's just no way you can fit in Jonathan Taylor. So, the thing is his offensive line is getting healthy, and Wentz looks like, if I had to call it, I'd say there's like a 60-40 chance he plays because we know he has the ability to clear with the new rules, I believe Sunday morning. So maybe we'll get some sort of announcement. If Wentz plays, I'm not worried about him not being able to practice. Looks like Quentin Nelson is back. It looks like Ryan Kelly is back. I think we might have to wait and hear on Eric Fisher. I'm not exactly sure what his status is, but with a healthy offensive line and Carson Wentz, okay, at that point, I'm back in on Jonathan Taylor, and I'm going to have to bring him into some of my lineups. Outside of that, I'm not really a big fan of anybody here. Obviously, Pittman is an absolute target monster. I'm just not so sure they're going to need him. I don't think Vegas is going to really press the Colts from a scoring point standpoint. So that's why I'm kind of fixated on Jonathan Taylor. Side note, the Vegas implied total is 19. I'm not sure why it's that high given how much they've scored over the last 4 games. Additional side note, and I promise I'll stop talking, Washington's plus 3.5 and the over under there is 45. I kind of like the plus 3.5 and the under in that game. I just wanted to throw that out there.
All right, Mike, how do you feel about the rest of the Colts here? Talk about it from both perspectives. Let's say that Carson Wentz is out. We have Sam Ehlinger, who is 4,500, and obviously Michael Pittman. While they don't have a lot of pass volume when they throw the ball, it's been to Michael Pittman. He has a 40% target share since week 13. And what happens if Carson Wentz is in? How does that affect what you're doing here with the Indianapolis Colts?
Yeah, so if Carson Wentz is out, I'll take tournament flyers on Nyheim Hines. He's someone I'd rather play than the Philadelphia running backs. He's 5,200. Just would expect to see more of him on the field in those situations. Shorter passes, easier passes. They're going to get creative. If Carson Wentz can't play, you'll see situations where they run Wildcat with him and Jonathan Taylor both on the field at the same time. We've already seen him do it several times in the red zone this season. So that's where my interest would lie, would be in tournaments with Nyheim Hines. No one's going to play him. Single-digit ownership. He can score 10 fantasy points plus in any game anyway. So I like him in this spot. If Wentz is in, I'm probably completely off of the game. Other than I could see using Zay Jones maybe just a little bit more, is I think that the passing volume would be there more consistently on the Raiders side. The only other side note where I could have some interest, and I think the whole entire industry can potentially, is Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell came back to practice for the Indianapolis Colts. If he, for some reason, is activated, I don't know if he will be, but if he is, we have no clue if he's going to have to work his way back ahead of Ashton Dulin again or not, or if he's just going to reassume that role. But if he is activated and we have some sort of good news there, he is the bare minimum 3K. He's certainly someone who is capable of having that. Well, it might only be 2 catches, but it could be the 60-yard bomb where they have a play action play. That's kind of how they used him before. So I just wanted to mention it because it's the absolute bare minimum price. But most likely the only piece I grab in this game is going to be Zay Jones, just as the last guy in, for similar reasons to why I like Paris Campbell.
All right. See, do you have any interest in the Raiders side of things? Hunter Renfrow is 6,500. He's kind of fallen off the past couple of weeks. Josh Jacobs, 6,200. Pretty safe floor, 11 plus DK points in 6 straight games. If you're looking for a punt wide receiver, I know you mentioned his name on Tuesday's podcast, Zay Jones. He's 3,900, and He has a 20% target share since week 12. I did just see that Bryan Edwards was activated off the COVID list, so it looks like he'll be back for this game. But there was a lot of those games where Bryan Edwards was still playing and Zay Jones was still seeing targets. So I think he's perfectly fine as a 3,900 punt. What do you think, Tia?
Yeah, I think I totally agree. The only guy I would consider on the Raiders side is Zay Jones at 3,900. 24 targets over his last 3 games. Last week, he actually saw more snaps than even Hunter Renfrow. So he's just on the field all the time. I don't think Bryan Edwards is going to really impact that. The only problem with Zay Jones is I question his ceiling, given that I don't think they're going to be doing a lot of scoring in that game. So it's kind of like a safe-ish type cash play, in my opinion, if you need the money. But in tournaments, again, I just question the ceiling for Zay Jones.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to how we've treated Laquan Treadwell the past couple of weeks. You're not expecting a big game, but if you want a 5 for 50, I think that's something that you can maybe expect there out of Zay Jones. Let's move on to the Falcons at the Bills. The Bills are 14.5-point favorites with a 44-point total here. Let's pay attention to the weather as we get closer as well. 23 degrees in Buffalo, overcast, 13-mile-per-hour winds. That's the projection for Sunday as of now. You know, obviously things can change this time of year. For the Falcons, they have 10 players on the COVID list, including Hayden Hurst and Tajay Sharp. Their cornerback Fabian Moreau did not practice. And then for the Bills, so much for Isaiah McKenzie, because Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis are back. Emmanuel Sanders did not practice on Thursday, but is likely a veteran day for him. Mike, are you looking at a Bills onslaught stack? They have the second highest implied team total on the slate. And obviously we know what they're capable of. They're going up against a pretty bad defense here with the Falcons. How do you feel about the Bills?
I don't feel great about it, just considering all those guys are coming back at the same time. You mentioned the weather forecast. You also know at this point, like, yes, they do tend to throw more, although in the last few weeks, we've seen them start to run the ball a little bit more. So I'm not looking to stack them really at all. I like Devin Singletary quite a bit. I won't say love, but I like him. He's right in that area with Darrell Williams, Sony Michel. Probably rated third right after those two, but I do like him. I will be playing him in at least one, but I'm not going to go on and full on stack the team. The beauty is there are 14 games on the slate. There are 3 to 4 teams that I could see onslaught stacking more. One of them we already talked about, Tampa Bay. I think I'd rather onslaught with Tampa Bay than Buffalo at this point. So I'm mostly off of it other than Devin Singletary. I think that I love that he was involved in the passing game. I know it was because they were a little bit banged up at wide receiver, but I saw some really good things there. And I actually think if you watch the game, you saw Josh Allen actually enjoyed being able to kind of check down to a running back and feel comfortable doing it for the first time in a while. So I would kind of expect to see a little bit more of that going forward from them. So I like Singletary, but I don't think I could talk myself into anyone else.
All right. Devin Singletary is 5,400 over on DraftKings. He has 16 plus touches in 3 of his last 5 games. He has 14 targets over his last 3 games, and he has 11 red zone opportunities over his last 2. So he has that valuable role where he's seeing targets and being used in the red zone as well. Sia, how do you feel about the Bills? This might be a spot where, with all the names coming back, maybe you look to run a Josh Allen naked here, where you don't really stack him up with anybody else. What are you thinking?
Absolutely. That's probably how I'm going to end up playing Josh Allen. I'm not going to be playing a lot of it because I am a little worried about this spread of 14.5. And it's just one of those things where even though in positive game scripts or neutral game scripts, Josh Allen still throws. I just, with Devin Singletary starting to step up a little bit, I think the range of outcomes I just feel like it's going to be more of a conservative game plan than your typical Buffalo Bills game. So I'll probably run one lineup with Josh Allen, probably naked, and then just sort of call it a day. I like Devin Singletary. I think with this type of spread, with Atlanta just only having a 14.75 implied total, I don't know, maybe Moss gets some run in the second half and takes away a little bit from Devin Singletary. That's kind of a watch out for me. I will say this, if you do want to stack Josh Allen, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. Listen, their implied total is almost 30 points, but if you do want to stack him and you're just like, you're trying to figure out who to play. Okay. So first of all, Stephon Diggs is an obvious option. He is not going to get shadowed by AJ Terrell. AJ Terrell does not shadow. So AJ Terrell will see a lot of Stephon Diggs, but it won't be a shadow situation. And by the way, does that even matter for Stephon Diggs? The other thing I did want to say is, if you're like Isaiah McKenzie, he probably gets bumped out by Cole Beasley. So if you're looking for an Emmanuel Sanders, I think you might have said it didn't practice today. If he's not on the field, I think the beneficiary out of this group is probably Gabriel Davis at 5K. I think he likely in 3 wide receiver sets lines up outside with Stephon Diggs, and Cole Beasley plays the slot.
All right. I think if I'm personally looking at stacking the Bill side, I would go quarterback, running back, wide receiver 1. I would go Josh Allen, Singletary, Stephon Diggs for me. Just try and cover all bases there against this Falcons defense.
And Frank, let me point just one other thing out, because I think people listening, they're going to be like, well, what about Dawson Knox? He's been incredible. He's led all tight ends in routes run. At least last week, he led all tight ends in routes run, and he's getting a lot of like important looks. The problem is, there's too many guys here, which is all the more reason, Frank, to go back to what you said in terms of playing Josh Allen naked. But I'd be remiss if I didn't just mention Dawson Knox at 5,500 on DraftKings. He certainly makes sense as part of a stack.
Yeah, I think for me this week, the way the tight end position is shaping out is either spend up or spend all the way down. I think that's what I'm currently looking at doing here. Anyone on the Falcons side, Sia?
No, I'm not interested. I mean, Russell Gage at 5,600, I guess that kind of makes sense. I'm not paying up for Pitts, and I'm not paying for Patterson or Mike Davis. So it's a no for me.
All right. We have the Jaguars at the Patriots. The Patriots are 16-point favorites here with a 41.5 point total. The Jaguars currently have 24 players on the COVID list as of Thursday. Of course, that can change by the time we get to Sunday. That includes Laviska Shenault, Josh Allen, and multiple offensive linemen. James Robinson tore his Achilles last week. He's done for the season. James O'Shaughnessy did not practice on Wednesday. I didn't see their Thursday practice report yet. The Patriots, 6 players on the COVID list, including their outside linebacker, Matthew Judon, and then Shaq Mason, Yadni Kajust, and Nelson Aguilar did not practice on Thursday. Mike, we have Damian Harris coming off a 3-touchdown game. He's 6,600. The problem is that Ramondre Stevenson is back. I'm assuming that we're out.
Yeah, totally out here. I think that if you wanted to just get crazy, if you wanted to play Harris, I would honestly consider playing both Harris and Stevenson and just hope that they just absolutely crush them on the ground, take all the rushing points. But there's too many running backs on the slate. The slate is too big. That's a move that you could pull on a playoff slate where there's 4 games total. Then you can start to do things like that. But with this size of slate, for me and the way I play at 5 lineups, there's no way I can get to this game.
All right.
I was just going to say, if I did, it's Laquan Treadwell as a last man in, but they're like, I'm not getting to Treadwell over Pringle in that environment. So yeah, I'm out.
Yeah. Treadwell finally priced up to 4K, and I say priced up to 4K. It's still obviously not that high of a price tag. See anything here? Other names we haven't mentioned yet. Jacoby Myers, he's fine. 5,100. Dario Gumbawale looks like he's going to step in as the starting running back. He is 5,100. And if you want to spend up on defense, I think the Pats defense could absolutely demolish the Jaguars, but they are expensive at 3,900.
Yeah, the Pats defense is in play. I'll probably pass on. I know I mentioned him on Tuesday, but I'll probably pass on Ogunbowale. The only thing I'll say about Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson is if we hear that, and we've heard this a lot in the last couple of weeks, that Ramondre coming off COVID, just you couldn't give it a full go in practice on Thursday or Friday, and it's looking like it's going to be Damian Harris as the bell cow, and maybe a week from now it's Ramondre Stevenson once he gets back. If we hear anything like that, then keeping in mind that the implied point total for the New England Patriots is close to 29, it would make a lot of sense to just go ahead and take the gamble on Damian Harris if you think, or if there's an indication that Ramondre is only going to get, let's say, 6 to 8 carries, for example. In that case, I think Damian Harris is fully back in play against this Jacksonville defense. But I agree with Mike for now. I'm off everybody in this game.
All right. The Patriots, you mentioned that implied team total tied with the Cowboys for the 3rd highest on this entire slate. Before we hit the break, just want to remind everyone you can join our FFT DFS contest, 150 entries, $5 to enter. The top 15 gets paid out. The link is in the podcast and YouTube description. And if you listen to us on Spotify, please feel free to leave a 5-star rating. They've recently implemented that on Spotify. So if you do listen to us there, we would highly appreciate that support. We'll take a quick break. We got 7 games down, 7 to go. We'll come back here on Fantasy Football Today DFS. All right, so let's jump back into the Dolphins at the Titans. The Titans are 3.5 point favorites with a 40-point total. And for Miami, they have 7 players on the COVID list, including Preston Williams and nose tackle Adam Butler. And then for the Titans, they have 9 players on the COVID list, including Julio Jones, Nick Westbrook-Akina, Danico Autry, and Bud Dupree. I really don't have much interest in this game. Obviously, it's a lower total here at 40. But I will say this, maybe in a tournament lineup, you play a mini stack of A.J. Brown and Jalen Waddle if this game somehow starts to shoot out between those two. A.J. Brown is 7,200. Jalen Waddle is 6,700. Mike, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I actually have interest in this game. I like both of those guys. I like A.J. Brown a lot. I do like Waddle. I'm very interested to see if he continues to take over the target share. In that last game, he clearly was the alpha. We kind of thought Devontae Parker might take back some of that role, but it was definitely Waddle. I like this game to shoot out a little bit, to be honest with you. I played the over on it, over on Sportsline. I think that both of these teams still have the ability to score. I think their defenses are good enough that you're going to see some shorter fields too, created by those defenses at times. So I love A.J. Brown. I think the targets are going to be there for him to at least pay off his tag, but wouldn't shock me if he's one of the highest scoring receivers on the slate.
All right, A.J. Brown currently projecting for 14% ownership, which is higher than I thought it would be, but Jalen Waddle on the other side, just 6%. He has 8+ receptions in 4 straight games. I do like Jalen Waddle quite a bit myself. Sia, what do you think? I don't think that there's personally anything outside of those 2 wide receivers in this game.
Totally. Oh, other than Myles Gaskin, you mean? I'm just joking. Sorry. That's my joke for the show. You're welcome. Jalen Waddle and A.J. Brown. Yeah, so I personally don't think I'm going to get there with Jalen Waddle. A.J. Brown, I'm going to have to fit into some lineups. I'm a little discouraged at this total of 40. I mean, it's so low. I agree with Mike that you're probably looking at the over here, but I do have to pay attention to this total. I can't just outright ignore it. And so I wonder what sort of the pace of play and what the game plan is going to be on the Tennessee side. What I will say is that the Dolphins love to blitz, and they're probably going to leave Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, at least in certain situations, on an island with A.J. Brown, which is a really bad idea. But the cool thing is it's been successful for the Dolphins as of late over the last, let's say, 7 games or so. So I don't think they're afraid to do that. They're not afraid of A.J. Brown, and that's sort of a perfect spot for A.J. Brown to be and anybody who wants to roster him this week. So that's really A.J. Brown, I think, is definitely, I don't want to say he's boom or bust, but given the point total, I'm a little shy with respect to playing him, but I'm definitely going to play him. I definitely agree with Mike that he has absolute smash potential. So I'm not going to have a lot of him. I'm going to have some of him though.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to say, basically, look at Antonio Brown last week. That's likely the state of the Titans offense in this game. He's going to see press man coverage. A.J. Brown is a grown man. He will thrive in press man coverage as long as Ryan Tannehill has enough time to get him the football. One thing we love about Ryan Tannehill is he's actually sneaky quick, sneaky fast. He has the ability to move. I think that we see a few big plays to A.J. Brown in this game, which is why I like the total, frankly, because of the big playability there, the big playability on the other side to Waddle, and then the defenses are good, but I do think they create short fields. I think that we'll still see quite a few fantasy points in this one.
All right, next up, we have the Giants at the Bears. The Bears are 6-point favorites with a 37-point total here. The Giants have 5 on the COVID list, including Darius Slayton. Kadarius Toney did not practice on Thursday. Saquon Barkley and Kyle Rudolph were limited. For the Bears, 3 on the COVID list, including Akeem Hicks. Justin Fields was limited at practice, and we still don't know who the quarterback is going to be in this game on the Bears side of things. Last week, it was Nick Foles. Andy Dalton is back. There's a chance Justin Fields could play. So it's pretty much a mess outside of David Montgomery, who is 6,500 and is currently projecting for the highest ownership among running backs, 26% on this slate. And I think given his role, it makes sense. So Sia, David Montgomery looking like a smash play in cash games this week.
You said it perfectly, because I think at this point, knowing what his ownership is, and I was wrong on Tuesday, by the way, I thought people were going to be slightly intimidated by the $6,500 price tag, not because that's super high, but because it's associated with David Montgomery. I just didn't think people would be that fast to play him, but clearly they're seeing the targets he's getting. They're seeing the carries that he's getting, and they're putting 2 and 2 together against a bad New York Giants run defense. So I'm all in on cash. Love it for cash. I think I'm probably out now in tournaments, though. I'm not really afraid of benching David Montgomery in my GPPs.
Yeah, I think maybe if you're going to do it in a single entry or something like that, you do it with the Bears defense. Mike, I know that's something you've mentioned before where if you're going to play a chalky running back, then pair them up with the defense there. And the Bears are 3,200. Obviously, they're going up against the Giants who are quite bad. It doesn't matter. Mike Glennon, Jake Fromm, whoever it is, I think their defense could take advantage there. Is there anything else in this game, Mike? Maybe Cole Kmet, or how do you feel about David Montgomery?
So I like Montgomery. There's two ways I'll be handling it. In a tournament, if I were to play him, I would pair him with the Bears defense. If in cash games, say you wanted to play Darrell Williams and Sony Michel and you didn't want to play David Montgomery, then I would probably take it a step further and play the Giants defense in that lineup, just to really apply some of that leverage in case Montgomery doesn't have a great game, in case they do shut out the Bears a little bit. Both of the defenses are in play, though. I like the Bears defense. I like the Giants defense. It's low scoring, basically going to play like a Big Ten football game. I like it a lot. So I like Montgomery, though. The issue is the ownership is rising. I'm not going to play Damian Harris, excuse me. Same team, Damian Harris. I'm not going to play him, but if you like Damian Harris, I would consider swapping to Damian Harris over David Montgomery in tournaments now, just because of the ownership levels.
Okay, let's move on to the afternoon games. We have the Cardinals at the Cowboys. The Cowboys are 5.5-point favorites with a 51-point total. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams respond. Obviously, the Cowboys are coming off of a huge blowout win on national TV. And then we have the Cardinals, who have lost 3 games in a row. For the Cardinals, 4 players on the COVID list, including outside linebacker Devon Kennard. James Conner and Rondale Moore were at practice on Thursday. Defensive end Jordan Phillips and cornerback Marco Wilson did not practice. And then for the Cowboys, left tackle Tyron Smith, wide receiver Malik Turner, and defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence were limited here on Thursday. Big total, lots of firepower in this game. Sia, how are we looking to stack this game? If we are looking to stack this game, obviously the Cowboys are especially in a good spot coming off that blowout win. And the Cardinals defense has been struggling. They've allowed the second most fantasy points to wide receivers over the past month. And we have some really good ones here with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper.
Quick, just bit of advice to those listening. So there's several different ways you can play DFS, NFL DFS. Obviously, you can play the main slate. We've talked about you can play the early slate. You can play the afternoon slate. I strongly recommend if you're willing to play several lineups, maybe you pick 1 or 2 from the early or particularly the afternoon slate. But the reason I bring this up is because I had a little fun last week when my Washington football team was getting completely demolished by the Dallas Cowboys. I actually did an in-game showdown, which is, for those of you that don't know, that's just playing the second half of a game that's already started. And I had Cooper Rush and Malik Turner in there, and it ended up cashing. My point is, there are so many options with DFS. Like, definitely, if you think you have a good idea of how the game is going to flow for a second half, go ahead and register for one of those tournaments from an in-game showdown standpoint. That's especially good into some of those isolated games. But yeah, this game, I don't think I'm actually going to be on, because we've talked about a lot of the games that I already like. This one, I'm not so sure about. I mean, I'm a little worried about Kyler Murray, particularly against that Dallas defensive line, because of what Kyler's shown us over the last 3, 4, 5 games. If I were to stack it, would probably be on the Dak Prescott side. They do have almost a 29-point total. I would probably do Dak to CeeDee Lamb and probably double stack it, maybe with Dalton Schultz, maybe with Amari Cooper, who's clearly they're concentrating on getting him some more work. We saw that last week as well. Maybe a bring back with Christian Kirk, who should be playing the slot. Zach Ertz is one of my favorite plays on the slate, to be honest with you, just because of the value you're getting and the fact that I think Kyler Murray is going to have to get the ball out of his hands pretty quickly for obvious reasons. So I will be playing a lot of Ertz, whether I'm stacking this game or not. He's definitely going to be a fundamental piece of my lineups.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think because of Zach Ertz, I actually like stacking the Cowboys side of things and then correlating it with Zach Ertz. I don't know that I want to stack Kyler Murray. He has a lot of options here to choose from as well. If you were doing it, I think it would be Kyler, Kirk, and Zach Ertz, and then you bring it back with your choice of a Cowboys receiver. But as of now, if I was stacking this game, I would go Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and Amari Cooper, bring it back with Zach Ertz. Mike, how do you feel about stacking this game?
I like the stack a lot. So I love the Arizona Cardinals this week. I think it's a massive bounce back spot for them, especially as long as James Conner is back, which it looks like he will be. I love stacking this game, though. I'm going to have a stack with Kyler Murray, James Conner, and Zach Ertz, because that's where I think the majority of the fantasy points, the majority of the offensive output is going to be. We can mostly guarantee that at worst, it's going to be a competitive game. And at best, they're trailing by 10 points for most of the game, which is absolutely ideal. So I am no longer worried about Kyler Murray and his health. I saw a lot of good things in that last game in terms of how he was running the football. I think that that's going to happen again. It's almost back to desperation time for them. It's funny because we were talking about running away with the number one overall seed. Now we're almost back to desperation time. Mm-hmm. And I think you see that a little bit in this game. So I love it. It's one of my favorite stacks of the week. I will be on the Kyler Murray side. I will have some Ertz sprinkled in, but I might only have Kyler Murray and James Conner in the same lineup just because I think it's going to be relatively different. Conner is very good at finding the end zone, but he's also going to be heavily involved in the passing game, in my opinion, in this matchup. So I love it a lot. And then on the other side, Amari Cooper is where I would be looking to go. So I love CeeDee Lamb. I think he's a great tournament play. My issue with it is he's off the field a lot more now because they are using him in the slot where he's incredibly dangerous, but that limits the number of snaps that he is playing. And maybe that's good for his overall long-term health, obviously, and it's good for his in-game health. But when you're coming to fantasy points and opportunities, I like Amari Cooper a little more than CeeDee Lamb just because of that role in the slot.
Yeah. For Amari Cooper, 11 targets, 7 receptions, 85 yards last week. Those were all his highest since week 8. And I think it makes sense considering he recently complained about not getting the ball enough. So the squeaky wheel gets the oil there. And he's considerably cheaper, not considerably, $500 cheaper than CeeDee Lamb in this spot. Mike, you mentioned James Conner. He is 6,100 and currently projecting at 1.5% ownership. So yeah, definitely different. Nice little contrarian spot here for James Conner. See anything else here?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, so when Mike said about like CeeDee Lamb not being on the field in in-game health, that definitely helps. But he's returning punts. He was returning punts last week in a game that wasn't competitive. So like Mike McCarthy, I question him in so many ways. I mean, just some obvious like time management stuff that I don't want to be too disparaging here, but like most people can figure out, like, don't put CeeDee Lamb back on punt returns, please. I'm just asking. I'm actually talking to Mike now. Like, please stop doing that. Okay, I'm done.
All right. Mike McClure or Mike McCarthy?
McCarthy.
Yeah. I always found it so weird. Like, why do teams use their best wide receiver as a punt returner? I guess it makes sense because like they're electric with the ball in their hands, but at the same time, like you expose these guys to so much more risk in plays like that. So I don't know. I always kind of find it head scratching whenever I see that. The Broncos are at the Chargers. The Chargers are 6.5 point favorites with a 46-point total. The Broncos called off practice Thursday after 5 more positive COVID tests. We know that Tim Patrick went on the COVID list earlier this week. Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, Bradley Chubb were all limited in practice on Wednesday. And then for the Chargers, 9 players on the COVID list, including Chris Harris and safety Nasir Adderley. They could be cleared by Sunday. Mike Williams was actually just activated on Thursday while we're recording this. So Mike Williams will be back here in this spot. Sia, we'll start with you. Austin Eckler is back, so let's start there. He's 8,200. He's the second highest priced running back on the slate. Are you looking to pay up for him in the spot?
No, I'm not. And it's for a couple of reasons. Mainly, I think Justin Jackson will have somewhat of a role here and just carve into his carries. And I just don't really know where this offense is at right now. And now that we have all the receivers they appear all to be healthy. I'm not 100% sure where these points are going to go. So I'm just going to, like, if Austin Eckler was 6,700 or 7,300, it would probably be a different analysis. But at 8,200, I'm definitely out on that.
All right, Mike, how do you feel about the Chargers passing attack? Obviously, Justin Herbert came through with a dud of a game last week. It was okay for fantasy, but, I gave my thoughts on Justin Herbert earlier in the week. Keenan Allen is back. It looks like Mike Williams is back. So, unfortunately, this pushes out our guy, Joshua Palmer.
So the beautiful thing about this is we do have 14 games. Like on a normal, like say some of those 9 and 10 game slates, I'd be very worried about saying, man, I don't want any part of this game just because of the upside that those guys provide. But I can pivot to the Arizona guys who I think are not going to be super popular. So I don't have any interest in this game now that everyone's back. I like Josh Palmer a lot. If one or both of Guyton and Mike Williams were out, I think he was almost a free square play. Now we don't get the opportunity to do that. So for me, at this point, I'm completely off of this game.
All right, see you can wrap us up here with the Broncos side of things. Drew Lock expects to start at quarterback once again. If Tim Patrick is out in this game, that condenses the target share a little bit. So we have Jerry Jeudy, we have Courtland Sutton, and we have Noah Fant. And then, of course, the running backs are here. They're priced up a little bit, 6,400 for Javonte, 6,200 for Melvin Gordon. We just saw Rex Burkhead run absolutely wild on this Chargers defense. Do you like anything on the Broncos side?
I like both of the running backs, probably Javonte a little bit more. I just wonder if I'm going to get there because I already said it pretty much at the top of the show and on Tuesday. There were so many running backs I liked. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, I do kind of like now. David Montgomery, I like. I'll tell you, Rashad Penny is somebody I'm interested in. Sony Michel, Darrell Williams. Do I actually get to Javonte Williams knowing that he's splitting carries with Melvin Gordon? Probably not. But if you really want to get different, there's certainly upside with Javonte Williams. We know he could probably spring one or two against this Chargers defense. So I guess I'm only moderately interested in him. If I'm going to pick a receiver, especially in a negative game script, I think Courtland Sutton at 4,500, knowing that Drew Lock is the quarterback, I think at 4,500, that's really interesting. I mean, we know the Chargers are pretty good against the pass, but again, I just think in a negative game script, if Tim Patrick is out, you're going to have to force it to Jeudy and Sutton. And I'll go with the guy, Sutton, who I actually think has a higher ceiling, maybe a lower floor.
All right. I just saw this. This was just random news, but Tevin Coleman placed on the reserve COVID list for the Jets. Unfortunately, Michael Carter's going up against the Bucs. It's an absolutely brutal matchup. So if it was against anyone else, I might have some interest, but it's just a really, really tough matchup there for Michael Carter. The Texans are at the 49ers. The 49ers are 12.5-point favorites with a 44-point total. And for the Texans, they have 7 players on the COVID list, including Chris Moore and David Johnson. And for the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo did not practice again Thursday. There were some rumblings that he was starting to feel better. Maybe he has a chance to play in this game. I don't think so, and I hope not, because Trey Lance is infinitely more fun. So, let's get Trey Lance out there. Elijah Mitchell was limited in practice. Mike, let's assume that Jimmy G is out. Trey Lance is 4,800. He's definitely in consideration for cash lineups. But what about GPPs? Are you looking to play maybe Trey Lance by himself as part of a stack? How are you handling this game in tournaments?
Yeah, and I mean, you said it. He's easily one of the top options in cash games. So again, very transparent. I play 5 lineups. 2 of them are planning to be Trey Lance lineups. 1 of them in cash games. 1 of them in tournaments. I don't think I'm going to end up handcuffing him with anyone. I think it's going to be just Lance. Now, the only little caveat to that would be in a tournament, I think it makes a ton of sense to pair him with the 49ers defense. 3,800, one of the more expensive defenses on the slate. Basically, you're elevating Lance's price point to a normal price point for a quarterback by playing the $3,800 defense instead of the $2,400 defense. Gets you different a little bit. I think some of his success is also going to be correlated to the 49ers defense, putting him in good field positions, not putting him in more difficult spots. So I like that one there. They're on their home field. That's the only real correlated play I'm going to be making with Lance, though.
All right. Trey Lance, earlier this season, he made 1 start for the 49ers. He went 15 for 29 in that game, 192 yards, 0 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. He did rush the ball 16 times for 89 yards. And that's exactly what we're looking for when it comes to Trey Lance. I think his path to, breaking the slate, I guess, is that 100-yard bonus and obviously just rushing for a ton of yards here in the spot. See, how are you handling the 49ers? Do you want to stack anybody with Trey Lance? How about the running back situation? If Elijah Mitchell is back, he's only $6K over on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'll be playing Trey Lance a lot in cash, probably standalone, like Mike suggested. And in tournaments, I'll probably play him with Deebo Samuel. Deebo's just not going to be super popular because of his price and because of where other people are going. I'm not looking at his initial projection, but when I looked at it a couple hours ago, I don't think I saw him near the top in terms of anywhere between like 12 and 20%. So I just like that stack because I think Trey Lance, to the extent he's not running it and he's passing, it's going to be the short area stuff that we know Deebo usually gets. So instead of Kittle, instead of Brandon Ayuk, I think Deebo Samuel is the guy. He'll probably get some run as well in terms of some rushing attempts as well, even if Elijah Mitchell is back. I'm somewhat interested in Elijah Mitchell. But again, the faith I have in Trey Lance almost gets me off of Elijah Mitchell a little bit here. So I do like a Trey Lance stack with Debo and a bring back with Brandon Cooks, who is now off the COVID list.
All righty. Brandon
Cooks. One other thing. And I mentioned this Tuesday, Chris Conley as a deep punt play flyer at 3,900. We talked about another guy at 3,900 earlier in the show. Nobody's playing Chris Conley. And I just think in a game like this, where it's a negative game script, and we know Davis Mills can throw the ball, and we know the San Francisco secondary is pretty bad. I think if it's not Brandon Cooks, you could really just pass the entire field if Conley gets some run here.
All right, let's move on to the Lions at the Seahawks. The Seahawks are 7-point favorites with a 42.5-point total. For the Lions, they have 4 players on the COVID list, including Josh Reynolds and Brock Wright. DeAndre Swift has been a full participant in practice both Wednesday and Thursday. Jared Goff, however, did not practice on Thursday. For the Seahawks, did not see their Thursday practice report yet, but DK Metcalf did not practice Wednesday. That's been pretty normal with him dealing with this foot injury all season. And we'll start there with the Seahawks offense. Mike, how do you feel here? DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. It feels like we've talked about them having upside, and there's been games where Tyler Lockett goes off. They don't go off together, that's for sure. So do you like any of the Seahawks wide receivers? And if not, maybe are you looking to play Rashad Penny in a good matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be Penny. I think he's an interesting pivot away from some of the other running backs we've talked about most of the show. But once again, another game that I'm likely not to get to. Just the issue for me with the Seahawks side is they run so slow. They run so few plays. If they're not efficient at all in that, they're just not really going to get there for you. Once again, the slate is just so big. Like I would have a ton of interest if it was like those 4-game like holiday or playoff slates. Like I think they'd be one of the best teams to stack, but because there are so many games, I just don't see it getting there. That said, I mean, it can, like Tyler Lockett can break a slate anytime. So I'm not going to hate it if you want to play him, but there's just no way that I can get there based off of the core plays that I've got in my lineups.
All right. Sia, you've already mentioned earlier that you do like Rashad Penny in this good matchup. He is 6,100 and makes for a good leverage play. I believe he was projecting for right around 6% ownership. Yeah, 6% on the dot. So that's pretty good compared to the other running backs that are in that price range. So nice leverage spot for him. Talk more about Rashad Penny and maybe DeAndre Swift on the other side. I really don't know if they're going to play him yet, but he is only 6K. So if he plays, he's just way, way, way too cheap.
I suppose, but I'm not interested in Swift at all. And I wonder if even if he plays, how much is he going to play relative to like Craig Reynolds, Jamal Williams, Igwebuike? I guess he doesn't. I'm not really worried about that. The last guy I said, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is interesting, but I'm not really going to chase that in this game. It is going to be a slow pace. It's Rashad Penny or nothing. I will be playing some Rashad Penny. I agree on the Lockett thing. He can break any slate. So if you're out there, feel free to throw him in a lineup. I don't think I'm going to get there based on what I've said about other players, but I do like Penny. I don't think 100+ yards and a touchdown or two was outside of the potential range of outcomes in this particular game against a very bad Detroit run defense.
Yeah, Penny finally looks healthy, and he has 130+ rushing yards and a touchdown in 2 of his last 3 games. Really strong matchup here against the Lions. So we know he's not going to catch the ball. That hurts him on DraftKings. Maybe you like him more on FanDuel where it's half PPR and the touchdown matters more. But regardless, I do like Rashad Penny quite a bit myself. The last game on the slate, we have the Panthers at the Saints. The Saints are 6.5-point favorites with a 38.5-point total. And there are 12 players on the COVID list for the Panthers, including Brian Burns and Brandon Zalstra. Sam Darnold will start in this game. And on the Saints side of things, 7 players on the COVID list. Teron Armstead and Traquan Smith did not practice on Thursday. They're not part of that COVID list, but they just didn't practice here on Thursday. Mike, is there anything in this game? It's a really low total, and Alvin Kamara, he's not running well. Mark Ingram's starting to eat into his workload. Alvin Kamara 7,900. The only thing I kind of like is the Saints defense. They're 3,400, and they're going up against Sam Darnold.
Yeah, the Saints defense is one that I could see myself playing. I just think it's a great spot. You get a little exposure to indirectly through the correlation to the running game with Kamara. No one's really going to play Kamara enough to like drastically hurt you across the board. So not overly concerned with it, but I do like them. Likely going to come down to like the 49ers defense is $400 more against Houston. Houston's put up a lot of yards, a lot of points. Like I think I'd rather make that leverage play, which correlates well with Trey Lance, who everyone's going to play. So they're in my player pool, but at 5 lineups, there's almost 0% chance I land on anyone in this game.
Okay. The only other player is DJ Moore, who is 5,600, and he has at least 7 targets in every game this season. The problem, probably going to see Marshawn Lattimore. Sam Darnold's back as his quarterback. I don't know. Does it help him? Who knows? See, what do you think about this game?
I mean, his catchable targets is like less than 50% at this point. It's crazy. So I think DJ Moore is interesting. I mean, if you wanted to get super crazy and run a skinny stack with DJ Moore on one side and Alvin Kamara on the other side, just knowing that A, they have upside, and B, nobody's going to roster them, feel free. It's an interesting play. But no, I have no interest in talking about anybody in this game.
All right. Well, let's get to the Don's sneaky picks. And I mentioned that he eliminated me from our home league season-long fantasy football playoffs. And unsurprisingly, he had to talk about that. So here we go. The Don sneaky picks.
Hello, everyone. The Don here. Let's start off with wishing everyone a happy and healthy new year. Just for the record, 3 out of my 6 fantasy teams have advanced to the championship round. Last week's picks were terrible. Let's try to get better results with this week's sneaky picks. This week's picks are Dari Ogunbowale and CJ Uzoma. And that's the bottom line because Don said so.
All right, so he went with some tough pronunciations there. He tried, but Dario Ogunbowale at 5,100 and CJ Uzama, who we've talked about quite a bit, and we do like. So if you're looking to spend down at tight end, 3,300, deep down, I think he's trying to troll me. I think he's trying to troll me for eliminating me from the playoffs. And he knows that he's giving out DFS picks. Meanwhile, he has to bring up what he does in season long, right? I don't know. Sneaky. I think that guy is trying to troll me. Let's wrap up with our week 17 cheat sheet, our favorite value, chalk, contrarian plays, plus our favorite stack. And Sia, we will start with you.
Yeah, so I'm cheating a little bit on the value. We like to stay under 5K, but I'm just going to go with Zach Ertz at 5,200 on DraftKings. Again, we talked about the value. He's going to be popular. Last I checked, he's one of 2 really popular tight ends, or one of 3 really, but the top 2 are Zach Ertz and Rob Gronkowski. I believe Goddard was sort of right behind them. So know that he's chalky, but I do think he presents value for your lineups. Speaking of chalk, my chalk play is David Montgomery at 6,500. As I said earlier in the show, I really like him for cash, not so much for tournaments. My contrarian play is Jamar Chase. Listen, this is a high-scoring game. It could be a back and forth, and we know T. Higgins has really gotten the bulk of the fantasy points, but that doesn't mean Jamar Chase can't assume that role as well. So not a lot of people playing him so far in terms of the roster projections that I'm seeing. And that's my contrarian play. And my stack play is also a little contrarian in a sense. Instead of Stafford to Cooper Kupp, I'm just going to say Stafford to Odell Beckham. And it's for 2 reasons. One is because they're running about the same number of routes. And I think they're obviously, it's a concentrated effort to get Odell involved. And by the way, the price saving. So I think Stafford to Kupp and Odell is a great stack, but I'm just going to change it up a little bit just so that you can save the money and just hope that Odell presents the same amount of value that Kupp does. So Stafford to Odell. Odell's only 5,700 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I like that call with Odell Beckham. He has scored a touchdown in 4 of his last 5 games. You're right. The Rams are making a concerted effort there to get him in the end zone. Mike, you're up. Our week 17 cheat sheet.
Value play, CJ Uzama, going with the Don here. I like this one a lot. 3,300, really cheap way to get exposure to that Kansas City-Cincinnati game. Love the way he's been involved. I do think that the focus is obviously going to be on the 3 receivers and Mixon out of the backfield. I expect him to have a few big chunk plays over the middle of the field against Kansas City here. For the chalk play, keeping it simple, Antonio Brown. Watch the injury report, but I'm assuming he's active. If he is $2,000 too cheap in this role. Contrarian play, Travis Kelce, coming back off of the COVID list, 7,300. We've seen a lot of love for Mark Andrews for good reason. He's been awesome recently. I think that this is going to be a great spot to buy low on Travis Kelce in terms of his ownership. Great way to get exposure to that game. And then my stack, I made a last-minute switch. Of course, I had my Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill, which I love. But I'm going with Kyler Murray to one of the running backs. We'll have to monitor who's going to play for sure. But if James Conner is in, I like stacking that there, or to Chase Edmonds. Whoever it looks like is going to be the lead back on Sunday, stack them with Kyler Murray.
All right. I love that Kelsey call too. Again, like this is such a great matchup, and other elite tight ends have absolutely destroyed the Bengals defense. So I'm really with you there on Travis Kelsey. I'll wrap it up here. My value play is Zay Jones. He's 3,900. I don't think he has a huge ceiling or anything, but the targets have been there over the past month or so. We'll see if Darren Waller returns. Obviously, that would affect things in the Raiders passing game as well. Chalk play. Not going to get different here. Not going to get weird. It's Sony Michel. It's 5,800. It's obvious 20 plus touches in 4 straight games. He's getting used in the red zone. Obviously, it is a good environment here going up against the Baltimore Ravens as well. Contrarian play. I've got 2 plays here. I do like Rashad Penny quite a bit in that price range. He's 6,100, and Jalen Waddle at 6,700. They're both projecting for 6% or less ownership as of now. And then my stack, I like this Cowboys and Cardinals game quite a bit. I think we can get some back and forth. Mike, you talked a lot about it. This is a must-win spot for the Cardinals. They try to get back on track. I think that they could push the Dallas Cowboys. So whether or not you want to do Dak to Lamb, that's what I prefer, or Dak to Amari Cooper, or Dak to both of them, and you bring it back with a Kirk or a Ertz or both of those guys and just completely game stack this one. I don't have a problem with it, but my preferred stack is Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb. That's going to do it. We're going to wrap there for See Ya. And Mike, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Football Today at DFS. We'll be back again on Tuesday to recap the weekend and take an early look at Week 18 pricing. We will see you.